What are the best tight end debates when you're looking at your fantasy football draft in 2022 and who should be the pick? Time to break it down right here and right now as we continue our positional outlook to help you dominate your draft on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. Come to site, get all the tools you need to dominate your draft. We got everything you can think of, rankings broken down by tiers, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end overall for full PPR, standard, half-point PPR, helping to identify the best sleepers and busts all over the board, as well as my rookie rankings, snake draft strategy tips. We also have our do not draft list and the best value picks by ADP. We've broken down a lot of that on Locked On Fantasy Football. This week, we were breaking down the greatest draft debates here of the 2022 fantasy football season. So we looked at the toss-ups. These are the players that are closely ranked or by ADP, and they're too tight to call on some of these positions here. So we talked about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and now we're down to tight ends. We're going to explore that position here as we continue to give you the ultimate draft prep on the show. Now, we will get into the 5 tight end debates that I've circled here on today's show. So we'll dive into those here in a moment. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by Elias. Their app lets you access team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons. Give yourself the edge this NFL season. Find Elias Game Plan in the App Store or Play Store today. All right, so we got 5 debates we'll talk about on today's show. We'll spend the first segment of this edition of Locked On Fantasy Football, our tight end debates, looking at the one debate that is confounding people. Once you get past the first tier of tight ends, it's Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and Kyle Pitts, kind of Kelce versus Andrews in the top tier. Then you have Kyle Pitts floating by himself. And the third tier is the Falcons' number 1 target with Drake London hurting Marcus Mariota. So all those guys with their current situations are clear number 1 targets on their team. Now, George Kittle and Darren Waller is a good battle. It used to be a Bay Area battle. Now you have San Francisco versus Las Vegas. So who should be the tight end 4 off the board? What's a better guy to target? So let's examine the case for both and make a call here for you. Let's look at George Kittle. Now, Kittle is awesome when he's on the field, but he's got a lot of durability issues. We know that. He tends to miss games all the time. He plays with reckless abandon. He's just all over the field like a freight train going 100 miles an hour, whether he's blocking or doing anything he needs to do the dirty work or just going out on routes and receiving. And he's just such a great athlete that sometimes things don't work out when he gets banged out by other players, and he's just a very physical player. So he's an old school tight end. We like that about him, and he can put up big yards as well. He's had the greatest yardage season there that was posted before Kelce got going. So when Kittle's on, he's very special. I think they could use him even more in the red zone. There's some limitations there because they tend to run the ball or throw to some other guys, and Trey Lance is going to cut into that a little bit as well, as Lance will be an option near the goal line for the 49ers. So you look at that, Kittle. Again, I love Kittle. I mean, he's one of my favorite reality players in the NFL. I've had him on fantasy teams where it's performed well, and it's been nice to have him because he can explode at any given time. We've seen him do it in numerous games. The Packers he's owned over the years and just explodes. He's a great downfield receiver. He can act like a wideout and go for 100 yards on 8 catches in any game like that. And again, you wish he had a little bit more scoring power, but when he's out there, you trust him. So again, reality-wise, Kittle may be the best tight end in the NFL because of his blocking being so superior in the running game over Kelce and Andrews, more their bigger wide receiver types here. But in terms of fantasy, Kittle is definitely behind those guys and Pitts this year. So the question is he also behind Darren Waller? Now, it hasn't been a great offseason for Darren Waller. He was the favorite target there for Derek Carr, but now Derek Carr has highs for Hunter Renfrow. And now he has his favorite go-to target from college, Devonta Adams, the target monster here. So Devonta Adams is going to be the new favorite here. It's going to still involve a lot of Hunter Renfrow and short to immediate passing game, but where does Darren Waller stand? He's coming off an injury riddled season. He's not very red zone efficient. He's getting older, and now he's got some injury issues in camp, hasn't practiced. It seems like he's around, but not really having any real impact on the Raiders. And part of it is just not wanting to play maybe until he gets a new contract. So that's a little bit of a concern here with Darren Waller. I mean, eventually I think he'll be in the fold here, but you have to look at Devonta Adams eating up a lot of targets on a team that doesn't have a lot of vacated targets. I mean, you're looking at guys like Brian Edwards leaving the mix. That's not a lot to your viability. So that Adams is adding on to what Renfrow and Waller did, and I think this offense is only going to explode and go nuts here. They still have bread and butter of the running game with Josh Jacobs, now some good depth behind him, and Kenny Drake and Zamir White. So I still think the running game is going to be a base of this team quite a bit, and they'll throw off that. Derek Carr, again, a good short to intermediate passer. The deep ball, it's not as much of a factor. Adams is not known for that type of play. However, it's more the sharp route running on intermediate routes, working inside and outside. Waller's going to be key, but Renfrow is also key there, what the Raiders do working out of the slot. So I just don't see great things for Darren Waller here. I mean, it's not the best vibes here. I know that Josh McDaniels is going to put a tight end in position to succeed. We've seen it with Rob Gronkowski for many years. But Kittle, I think, is just a better player than Waller, and the numbers are going to be there. And I don't see necessarily Brandon Ayuk having the same role there, and Deebo Samuel is going to be curbed a little bit. I think Deebo and Ayuk can have their share of injury issues, which can open up things for Kittle. You also have a young quarterback there in Trey Lance who should feel it with Kittle a little bit more. I know you have Jimmy Garoppolo and Kittle. They were boys together, but young quarterbacks tend to work the middle of the field a little bit more. Derek Carr is a veteran. He's going to be more aggressive, and he's got a new comfort level in his new go-to receiver there in Devonta Adams. So a lot of things to look at there, but I would say the decision goes with George Kittle, barely, but that's where I would go with my fourth tight end in fantasy here in 2022. Now we'll break down four more debates for you on the show. We'll take two each in our final two segments of the show and the week here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Before we do that, I've got to tell you about one of our really exciting new sponsors. It is Dave. And with Dave, they're going to help you help yourself here with a little bit of financial relief. And look, we've all been in situations at some point in our lives when we're a little tight on cash. Maybe you can only afford to put a few gallons of gas in your tank, or you got another save the date and you're wondering how you're going to afford a gift or just get to the wedding alone. That's where Dave can help. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. Now Dave can help you out of a pinch when you really need it. Hindsight is 20/20, and you can't change the past. But what if you could get a little help from your future self? Maybe you'd ask to borrow a little cash. Now you can. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. There's more money to fill your tank, buy a wedding gift, or just catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. And best part, there's no interest and no credit check needed with Dave. It's DAVE. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. If you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Just download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's DAVE. That's DAVE. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Dave, future you will thank you. All right, it is time to continue the show here and break down our tight end draft debates here for the 2022 fantasy football season. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. However you play, get the latest NFL draft tips from us here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Don't forget about Locked On Dynasty, a great show here on the network as well, with our excellent crew of hosts, including Marcus and Kate and Ryan and Matt. Just good stuff from them as well. I'm Vinny. Plus, starting August 22nd, we're bringing you daily top 10 lists for fantasy draft week. That's right. Next week, you'll check out all our top 10 lists in the rankings. We've hinted at those lists here as we've given you the draft plan across positions. We'll reveal that for you as a network: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends, and defense. So excited to do that and share that with you next week. Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It is time to continue the show and break down some key tight end debates in the draft. We got two more to look at here. So once you pass Kittle and Waller, you're navigating the middle of the draft. You have now another decision to make if you passed on tight end in the top five. Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys, TJ Hawkinson of the Lions. Now, Dalton Schultz coming off a nice season. He was the third scorer behind Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews last year at the position. Let's look at the Cowboys here. They're down a lot of receivers. Other than CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup's still in the bed. It's not going to be ready for the start of the regular season. Amari Cooper's gone. Cedric Wilson's gone. Malik Turner's gone. Dalton Schultz is in a really good spot here to keep it up, and he's a good touchdown scorer playing off CeeDee Lamb, so there's another target that's going to get some attention and work the middle of the field here, so that's great. Don't forget about Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard there, the running game, and then having Pollard slip out of the backfield, so good intermediate help there that can keep Schultz and scheme him open. He was returned on the franchise tag here. He's an integral part of the Cowboys offense here with Kellen Moore. It's going to stay pretty wide open. Schultz is better known as a receiver than a blocker here. And I think the offensive line is better for the Cowboys. They'll free up Schultz a little bit more. I don't see them using a lot of 12 personnel sets, but 11 there. They'll work it in and out depending on their depth available in Dallas. But Dalton Schultz in a good position to mirror a lot of last year's production. He's being undervalued here, I think. I mean, I might think of him over Darren Waller. I think he's a better value here a little bit later as the middle of the road tight end here. And that also tells you that I like him a little bit more than TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson, look, he's coming back from injury, which is concerning. He's had some missed time over time. He's not exactly George Kittle, his teammate from Iowa, in terms of the durability issues, but the tight end touchdowns have been limited here for the Lions in general. Jared Goff and that chemistry with Hawkinson was touted quite a bit, but there was to the rookie Amon Ra slot. We know he was a big factor last year. You got now DJ Chark there, and Jameson Williams, the rookie first rounder out of Alabama. So this offense is a little bit more diverse around Jared Goff. Don't forget about DeAndre Swift. So there's a lot of guys that can eat into the targets that Hawkinson would get. St. Brown, I don't think his emergence was fluky there. Then you add two more bona fide receivers here in Chark and Williams. That's going to complicate things the way they operate. I think you'll see more of wide receiver-centric passing game and Swift getting a lot of targets in the short passing game as well. So Hawkinson has a lot of competition for balls. It's quite simply. I mean, this Lions offense is suddenly loaded here. Skill positions, running back, their offensive line is one of the best in the league as well. So when you look at Hawkinson and Goff, or do you go Schultz and Prescott? I think we had good evidence last year for durability and quarterback connection. You got to go with Dalton Schultz over TJ Hawkinson. It's not even a question here in that next grouping of tight ends. Now, the next debate is kind of interesting as well. It's the current Eagle and the starter there with Jalen Hurts playing off A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. It's Dallas Goedert versus Zach Ertz, the former Eagle. He was the main guy. Goddard was his heir apparent. That happened. The Eagles traded midseason to the Cardinals. What did he do? He just emerged as a valuable tight end one, working with Kyler Murray. You had the DeAndre Hopkins injury. He was slowed down. Hopkins is missing 6 games again. You add Marquise Brown, and that adds something to your offense. But keep in mind, you lost Christian Kirk there in Arizona. So they're trying to make up for those targets. It'll be partly Marquise Brown, partly it'll fall on Rondale Moore in the slot. I know what the concern is a little bit with Zach Ertz is he's a little bit older. He can be a bit injury prone, but the Cardinals gave him a multi-year contract here. Max Williams recovering from a big injury there. That's a big reason they traded for Ertz last year. You have Trey McBride as well, the talented rookie from Colorado State. But again, it takes a while for these tight ends to get their feet wet. It's a very complicated position. You got to block and handle the receiving routes, and it's also a complicated offense in general with Cliff Kingsbury. So really, you can't just throw in a rookie there. Goddard, and you can't ignore that A.J. Brown is going to be a big factor, stealing some targets along with Devonta Smith, being a bigger role in year 2. So they want to throw the ball a little bit more. That's going to help Goddard in general. He wasn't a big touchdown guy. He had some downfield plays. He still has very good chemistry with Jalen Hurts. I do like Goddard quite a bit here. This is a tough call for me. I think you're okay either way, getting one as a tight end one, because I think it's a little bit more ambiguous where Ertz is going to fall on the level of targets, especially with Hopkins coming back after 6 games. Rondale Moore having a bigger role here potentially to help Marquise Brown. A.J. Green is still there. I do like Ertz as a good value pick here. I don't want to invest him in too high And I think there needs to be some separation between him and Goddard. But you look at Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, Goddard is still in the top 3 targets, and you can't ignore the fact that Jalen Hurts has the most familiarity with Goddard, and he trusts him in a lot of key situations outfield. Having A.J. Brown, that the double team and the deep threat, and Devonta on the other side is going to help things open up the middle of the field here. They're still figuring out who they're going to throw to in the passing game most out of the backfield. Probably the rookie or second-year player now, Kenneth Gainwell, but the rookie that they loved last year, seeing a bigger role in Philadelphia. So I'm going to go Dallas Goedert. I just trust younger players a little bit more. He's an integral part to what Jalen Hurts wants to do. Ertz, I do like, and I think you can extract some decent tight end value, but I think if you're looking for touchdowns and yards, the receptions actually might favor Ertz here overall, but I think touchdowns and yards for Goddard, and also looking at the reception total, it might be in the 65 range. Ertz might be in the 70s, but I think Goddard overall is going to have a bigger impact on an offense I trust a little bit more in the Eagles and throwing the ball than I do with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. All right, we do have a couple more debates that we'll get to in our final segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football as we discuss the tough tight end decisions here in your fantasy football drafts. And I got to tell you before we dive into that, today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp. And we do things to tweak and improve a lot of things in our lives, our house, our car, our fantasy football team, little things, big things. But what's the most important thing? Our lives. And our lives can often throw us a curveball. The key is having someone to help us talk us through it and get better. Well, really, what I have to recommend is having a consistent source of therapy here, meeting with someone to help you through those life's twists and turns. Here, I find it very helpful to meet with a counselor once a month here, and I think you would benefit from it too. And now it's easier than before, and if you've had some intimidating feelings about it, well, BetterHelp is going to help you get the help you need in the right way and in a comfortable way for you. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log in to your account anytime and check it out and know when your appointments are and be kind of locked into your therapist. So it is a great resource for you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. And getting therapy every week is as easy as a few clicks on your laptop or phone. With therapy, it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy. That should also help you, and financial aid is available as well. BetterHelp is a great way to invest in yourself. Visit their website and read their testimonials that are posted daily. Everyone is raving about getting help from BetterHelp. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. And they have a special offer for you, my listener to Locked On Fantasy Football. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp. That's H-E-L-P, BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, it is time to end the show here and the look at the greatest tight end debates of our 2022 fantasy football drafts here. We're up to an interesting one. These are two sleepers, and they have fun names to stay. Cole Kmet and Pat Freiermuth. Now, we know Cole Kmet in one corner is dealing with a second-year quarterback, learning a new Packers-style offense there in Justin Fields. We know on the other side, we're not sure who the starting quarterback is. We figured it might be Mitchell Trubisky early and Kenny Pickett later in the season. Pat Freiermuth, and you also have to deal with quite a few guys in the lineup. You got Deontay Johnson with his spanking new contract, George Pickens buzzing as a rookie big slot. You have Chase Claypool. You got Calvin Austin, the rookie, the other rookie that could have an impact at some point. You got Najee Harris being a valuable receiver out of the backfield. What do you have in Chicago? You have Darnell Mooney looking good with Justin Fields as a clear number one. You got Velus Jones, the rookie there, buzzing a little bit. Byron Pringle, if he can return. David Montgomery is a decent receiver. We know that out of the backfield, but where the target's going to go, and you look at Cole Kmet, I think he's going to be a key factor here all over the field. He didn't score a touchdown. He's actually been rather inefficient in the red zone usage. Freiermuth, his calling card is scoring on the short passes here, and a little bit of ask for Pat Freiermuth. I think he's just a better talent. He's more athletic, can get all over the field a little bit better than what did you get in Freiermuth. So Freiermuth is more of a short area dependent tight end at this rate. You also look at the target share. I mean, Cole Kmet is going to get a much bigger chunk of that. I mean, Jones is still a rookie. Pringle is new to the offense. Kmet and Mooney are the guys that have the connection established with Fields. Freiermuth does not have a connection with either Trubisky or Pickett carrying over from last year. A lot of it was Ben Roethlisberger had a noodle arm and had to throw shorter and target tight ends a little bit more. So Pat Freiermuth, I mean, you look at Eric Ebron being on, that helps a little bit. Cole Kmet, however, is in a similar situation with Jimmy Graham being long gone from the Bears at this point. So there's some options there when you look at these two, but I really like Cole Kmet. He's the guy I'm going with. I think there's going to be positive touchdown results from him all over the field. He's a little bit more active, a better athlete overall, better receiver, and good target share for him in this Bears offense. So I'm going Cole Kmet over Pat Freiermuth. Not a question. I might even go Cole Kmet over Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. I might go for the upside here in a lot of my drafts. I think Kmet is a sneaky guy that is definitely being underdrafted a little bit, even as a back-end tight end one. I think you can get bigger results out of him. I'll definitely take him over Dawson Knox, given that situation with the Bills having a lot of mouths to feed, and Kmet over Freiermuth is also the choice here. Now, we'll talk about one more debate here as we try to fill in our tight end ones. And this is a little bit of a bonus debate here. This is a borderline tight end one battle of two guys that were really good last year for different reasons, and they're both in the AFC East. Hunter Henry of the Patriots and Mike Gesicki of the Dolphins. What a battle here. The one thing about Hunter Henry, big touchdown scorer, great chemistry with Mac Jones. You got Mike Gesicki playing with the guy that was there before Mac Jones at Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa. You have Tyreek Hill added to that situation in Miami. I'm not sure Mike Gesicki is the best fit, even though there's been some parallels drawn between him and George Kittle and the Mike McDaniel 49ers style offense. He's not a kill type player. To me, he's a short area player. He's not a most efficient red zone guy. He's not the biggest after the catch guy. He's very athletic and is a short area tight end. But you look at the parallel from the last guy we talked about, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki. Where do they go to school? Penn State. Short area kind of receiver. So that should make Gesicki better in the red zone, but it doesn't translate as well as it does for Freiermuth in the NFL. So that's something to watch there. But definitely Tyreek Hill is going to cut into Freiermuth's value. I also think Chase Edmonds out of the backfield is going to be a key factor in these short to intermediate passes for the Dolphins, and you have some other capable receivers there at that position. But don't sleep on Edmonds. Again, you also have Cedric Wilson in the mix, so I think you could see a little bit more 11 personnel. I know they have some depth at tight end in Miami, but 11 personnel using the wide receivers, targeting them a little bit more, using the running game, and you also have questions about Tagovailoa and trusting him. So Hunter Henry, I think Mac Jones at least. There's not a lot there. They added Devonta Parker, but no one can really cut into it. You might get a little cut in from Jonnu Smith. I think the touchdowns are certainly going to regress from Hunter Henry. He was almost scoring on a weekly basis there at the end of the season. So I just don't see that from what you get from Henry. So if you shrink them a little bit, I'm still going to lean towards Mike Gesicki finishing a little bit higher overall. So if there's some touchdown regression there, maybe a touchdown bump for Gesicki. I don't see, again, massive volume for either of these guys. I mean, these are run-heavy type offenses. They've got other mouths to feed. Diverse. The quarterbacks, Jones and Tagovailoa, are not going to just throw the ball around the building. I don't think there's going to be that kind of a shootout mentality for either offense. So, again, I'm not feeling it too much with either of these guys. I don't want to dip this low if I'm going to make that debate. I don't want to get into the Noah Fant to Albert O debate there, the former and current Bronco / Seahawk there. I don't want to get to that debate. So I want to jump on one of these guys before. So that's my strategy for you, is just don't get caught in these tough situations. But if you had to go and you're on the clock between Henry and Gesicki, I'm going to Gesicki still. I think he's a better talent. And Henry, again, there are factors that could limit what Henry can do. So it's pretty close, but I'm going there. So to recap our tight end decisions here for you, take George Kittle over Darren Waller, take Dalton Schultz over TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert over Zach Ertz, and Cole Kmet over Pat Freiermuth, and then finally Gesicki over Henry. So good stuff here on the show. Thanks so much for listening and making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. Now, make your second listen Locked On NFL, our team of experts there breaking down the league from a reality perspective for you there on that show. So check it out. We're all available for you on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts as well. And don't forget, big week next week as we reveal our rankings across the network here for fantasy and Dynasty. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this is Vinnie Iyer. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the NFL preseason games of week 2. We'll catch you on the other side with more draft domination prep for you.